There we go. It says at the top of the screen, it's showtime, Paul. And we are into another live stream from Truth Proof. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you very much, Les, and welcome to you, my friend. And we've got Alison doing moderating, and Lee, I haven't seen his name there. Oh, I do see it now, but and Lee doing moderating for us. So thanks a lot, guys, right from the start. Two great guests tonight.
Two guests we've not had on before.
Absolutely. So we've got John Tedesco of the Tedesco brothers, so pretty synonymous at the moment, and up there at the forefront with the UFO research. And obviously we'll introduce them in a moment. And Robin, who's part of their team. But before we get to that, Les, what you been up to?
Well, I've just been, the usual thing, more editing. And more editing, Paul, is the name of the game mostly for me these days.
Excellent. Well, there's no wrong with more editing, is there? I've been busy myself today, and I'm off to Flixton tomorrow to interview some witnesses, so I'm quite excited.
That's exciting.
It's weird, isn't it? A 62-year-old, I'm excited.
Now, without giving too much away, are these witnesses of the UAP, UFO, or is it more creature-based?
It's a cryptid type sighting, and
okay.
I'll talk about it on Sunday. I'll talk about it with John and Robin if they want, because it's a strange one. It's almost like something that's in and out of reality. What these people have seen, it's really interesting. So, But before we jump to that, let's have a look. We've got 120 people in chat already, so let's have a few names here. Carol Pointer, Jackson Hill, Sober Carper, Jamie Lee Deaton, Chris James, William Nielsen, Vladimir. Let's have a look here. Let's have Simon Riley, Rachel Gold, Steve071, Tonya Morrison, Stargazer Eternal. I think Linny will be in. Good to see you. Pete, I hope you're recovering well from your operation. Bob Brown, likewise. Karen Bierman and Lisa Odd, Patrick Daniel, Moondog, Blue Shift. You know, we could do an whole, it's like bingo calling this, isn't it? We could do an whole show just calling names out, but we're not going to do that. We'll shout a few: Dragonborn, Mike Disabled Welshman, Scotch Mist Enigma, Christopher Black. We'll do a few Galber, Dave Barker. I've got to stop.
Yeah,
and we'll do a few names later.
Yeah, for these, and for anybody on the stream who doesn't know the usual protocol, the protocol is if you've got any questions, I'll warn you now, we may or may not get to those this evening. But if you've got any questions for our guests, John or Robin, then please put those questions in caps.
Excellent. Thank you, Les.
Okay, so without further ado, then I'll disappear, Paul, and probably come back if when the questions come in, and we'll bring your guests on.
Yes, superb. Hello, John. Hello, Robin.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing? Great to be able to join you tonight.
Absolutely. So pleased to be speaking to you. And people involved in the UFO subject, the current debate and what's happening currently will know all about John and Gerry. Is it Gerry or Gerald Tedesco? I've got to pronounce it right. I don't want to insult your brother. And Robin, who's part of your team. And it's absolutely brilliant that you're boots on the ground researchers who are getting out there with your RV, the Nightcrawler, and finding all this incredible information. And before we jump into that, though, John and Robin, where did it begin for you guys? Has there always been an interest in unexplained phenomena?
Oh boy, for us, it started out back in 21, June of 21. We hooked up with the Galileo project at Harvard University, and the guy that was responsible for it, for getting it started, was Dr. Avi Loeb, and he was the astrophysicist of the department for Harvard University, and he was interested in what we were doing on a mobile platform, and they were in the process of putting together a sensor system on a rooftop sensor. So we basically yes, on top of the university there, and so they of course he liked what we had to offer, what we were doing with a mobile platform, and we introduced some of the concepts. Some were new to those guys, and they brought us aboard as affiliates. So Gerry and I were with them for roughly 3 years, and during that period of time, we had two different directions going on. Harvard, maintained a permanent platform, and which I think that's due to change anyway. But we went with the mobile. and some of the sensors was similar, but different. And we decided to do boots on the ground out here on Long Island, off the coast.
And do you cross-reference information then still, or have you separated now?
Yes, for the most part, we do try to work in conjunction with them at times, sharing information. But for the most part, it's there. We got two different tracks going on here, I'm not sure exactly, where they are right now with the data that they've already started taking. And I believe they've cataloged like 500,000 different objects that they've seen with their system,
with their equipment.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not sure if there's anything that was anomalous about it at this point, but definitely, Avi's a bit of a maverick, and I applaud what he's doing. And of course, that gave us a little bit of a nudge too to get started on our own track.
Yeah. Does he aid you then?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Robin. Sorry.
No. They had bigger ideas than what Harvard really wanted to go for, I believe. So they kind of went off on their own, and they worked with Avi, but they shared everything with Avi and that group, the Galileo, everybody from the Galileo project. So it all started from there. And then in the meantime, John, Gerry, and the rest of us, the group, we would go out and, we would do our own thing. So we were collaborating, and, it just seems that a lot of people like to work in silos. And what I'm enjoying is that you guys want to maybe collaborate with us.
Absolutely,
and that's a great thing.
And we believe in being transparent, and we have plenty of affiliates nowadays. We're working with other groups as well. So, the sharing of resources is it's important, and it's a very positive approach, to get this kind of detail as far as what the other side is doing, what other instrumentations are being used, and even to establishing methodologies to get out there and take data.
I would imagine working with those guys for 3 years, you will have learned different disciplines and different ways of looking at the phenomena. The phenomena as a whole, because as ufologists, and I'm not labeling you as a ufologist or myself. But looking into this, I'm not from a scientific background, so I think that something from academia would help us. It would aid us as well, and it's good that they're not that rigid in their sort of framework, that they're not going to embrace you guys and people from outside. Have you opened their mind up to the possibility of other things, do you think?
I believe we have, and Avi was open in the beginning anyway, as far as tackling this kind of research. There's not too many places doing it, not too many universities that have taken this kind of an approach, and to get out there and get something established early on and get a team together. That's it's commendable.
Okay, so we know that you started that in 2021, but before we jump into Nightcrawler and the equipment you're using and the data that you've collected and the things that you've seen, what about earlier on in life? What about childhood? Did you have experiences? I'm just looking. I'm thinking there's got to be a hook that's got you in here.
Yes, yeah. There was a couple of hooks. Was. I could remember one occasion. I was about 7 years old at the time, and we had a visitor. We were little tykes. And
he's got 9 brothers and sisters.
Yeah, big family. But
right.
It was, we had my 3 brothers and myself. We had a visitor. Early in the night. It was about 9 p.m. and we get a knock on the door, and it's a guy with a suit on and a fedora hat, carrying a briefcase. And so we let him in, and he was representing a company called Sluggabug. Believe it or not, it's a
it's
an exterminating company. So it's a unique name. And at any rate, he
And your babysitter.
He was pleasant. He got our attention. He had a nice appeal about him, and he sat down and didn't talk anything about exterminating. He spoke about the future events, and he had books in his briefcase, such as Edgar Casey, talking about future events, that sort of thing. And he talked a lot about UAP and the paranormal. So the guy was fascinating. It was, but the interesting thing about him is that none of us could remember specific details about him, any attributes, anything that we could remember other than his fedora hat that he was wearing, but no facial features. We couldn't describe it. But my parents at the time, they called the authorities because they thought it was a little unusual. There was nobody that they knew of that was representing any company, especially an exterminating company. And we were never able to track him down, but he had visited us that night very quietly. We don't remember any kind of a vehicle that he drove up in.
He just kind of disappeared.
He left just as quietly, but it instilled in us
an inquiring mind,
sense of adventure. To go out there and do something like this, But over the years, there was certainly other events, and living on Long Island, there was some interesting observations that we made, and people would talk about orbs and colored lights out there and that sort of thing. So it was somewhat active Long Island, and
absolutely. That's so interesting, honestly. And to think that somebody's just arrived in the evening and dressed as they are, representing some kind of pest control unit and or company, and then like trying to educate you about unexplained phenomena or suggesting things like that. What do you think? I don't know how old you are now, John, but what do you think after all these years, looking back at it, what were the purpose of that, do you think?
I really don't know, but it's we joke about it. We call them the Man in Black or the Men in Black, and for him to represent the kind of stuff that we were always into, sci-fi, that sort of thing. We kind of enjoyed that genre of entertainment, but to have somebody come in and actually it kind of hit home with us, as far as giving us a direction, I think.
But, I have to be a believer, being that he's got me watching Star Trek now. I'm not a Trekkie now. I'm starting to become one.
So what about you then, Robin? Because obviously you've got a vested interest in this research and what John and Gerry are doing. What set you off on this path?
Well, when they started, the paranormal and what we're doing now has always been a deep interest to me. I just didn't know what to do with it. And John and I have been together for 25 years, and he kind of we're together all the time. We live together, so he just turned me on to it, and and brought me into it, and it's very exciting, and I like a little bit of scary, and I just love this kind of thing.
I think that interest might have something to do with the fact that we're both Capricorns.
We're both born
on the same day.
Same year, 3 minutes apart.
Yeah.
Well,
we're 3 minutes apart.
That more than coincidence, isn't it?
Sure.
But that's brilliant, isn't it? And I like the fact that you I can see you both get a buzz from what you're investigating and what you're doing. And I suppose that the questions I've just asked you, with the radio shows and podcasts that you've done recently, probably people might not have asked you those questions, maybe because they want to know what's happening, what's current, because you're at the forefront of boots on the ground research, I would say. So let's kind of jump to it and just give our listeners a breakdown of what you're about before we talk about the research and what you've seen.
Right. So what we're trying to do here is we're we've heard for a number of years that folks have been seeing these interesting lights in the sky and that sort of thing, and it's Long Island is actually known for more of a paranormal type occurrences, happening on almost on a regular basis. But we've also, we've had UFO in the news. We have a lot of history over here, rich history. We have Camp Hero to the east of us.
It's out in Montauk. That's the end of the island,
really?
Long Island.
Right, and and that was the early science out there with the time travel. They talked a lot about what was going on with making radar invisibility. For the basically making ships disappear.
We're talking similar Philadelphia.
Yes, very similar. Yeah, Yep, and
the experiment.
Yeah, and then to the west of us, they have of course the Amityville Horror House. It's I'm sure many people have heard about the Lutz family,
the DeFeo family, which lived 2 doors down from my cousins on the water there. Yeah.
So and then if we had not too long ago, we had back in the mid '80s, we had a situation over in South Haven Park where they believed there might have been an unidentified flying object that had come into one of the parks, South Haven Park, and actually took off the tops of trees. Really? And they had shut down the roads going into this park area, and Brookhaven National Laboratory was involved in some kind of a cleanup or removal. We not quite sure exactly what happened there, but a lot of talk about an object that fell out of the atmosphere and landed in the park.
May I interrupt for a second?
But they
did. Brookhaven National Lab is off of this parkway, William Floyd Parkway. And we heard that 2 nights ago, Brookhaven Lab shut down this parkway. It's totally shut down. So apparently something happened there. And the site where that crash was many years ago, there is still that whole opening. And it's just a big bare space there now.
Okay.
But now we're trying to find out why the highway was closed down, the parkway was closed down, because everybody uses that. That's like a main highway.
Right.
So we don't know why that was shut down, but that's right in front of the lab, Brookhaven National Laboratory.
Yeah, it's got kind of overtones of what happened back in the 80s. So, we're curious as to what might have happened over there, why they had shut down, those.
So you're in an area rich in history and ongoing unexplained phenomena. So when you go out there in your vehicle, how many people typically go out?
So it depends. Most of the time we have at least 2 people out there. Sometimes it could be as many as 7 or 8, and we have it's all volunteers, and with people with diverse backgrounds. Gerry and I are engineers. I'm an electrical engineer, retired, and Gerry is an aerospace engineer. He was also involved, believe it or not, in the forensics area. He used to work for the coroner's office a number of years ago as a toxicologist.
And the aviation, he had clearance. I don't know if he has the clearance anymore.
Right. Yeah, and Gerald's got a higher level security clearance than I do.
Okay.
But the primary work that I did was basically electrical design. It's instrumentation engineer, instrumentation specialist.
Do you find yourself going to the same location more often than not, or do you move around?
With there's actually 3 locations that we've been exploring here on the island that seems to have the most amount of activity, and that's Robert Moses State Park off the South Shore on a barrier island. Further east is Camp Hero, that's out towards Montauk, and then we have an area on the North Shore called Cedar Beach, and Cedar Beach overlooks the Sound over to Connecticut. And a lot of activity over there too. especially with over the sound. And in Connecticut, there's been a lot of recent sightings in Connecticut with orbs, and of course these.
John, when you say the sounds, are you talking about a bay?
Yes, it's like a bay. It was the water. Yeah, I mean, it goes out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
But it's a body of water in there. They call the Long Island Sound.
The sounds. So you've got 3 primary areas that you visit more often than not. Is each area producing multi-phenomena events, or do you find one area seems to produce a certain type of phenomena?
I believe all 3 areas are producing very similar sightings. As far as how they present. And over here we've seen a couple of objects that actually look like the typical tic tac that they see out there. That the military see in the Navy,
right.
And orbs almost on a regular basis.
Orbs that split up, orbs that come together, as you'll have 3 of them, like almost in a triangle shape, and then they'll all come together as one.
Right. They'll converge at times, many times we'll see them. They look like quite a network. They almost look like a constellation.
Really.
But they're in a very static position. We don't see any movement.
We've got a man in chat. I saw him earlier, Dave Barker, and he had an incredible sighting. It will not mind me saying. And when he was telling me about it, he says at one point they looked like a 5 on a domino as they were appearing, in the sky, and and looking in all different positions. These lights, then these orbs, do they just appear, or are they flying in?
They, sometimes they'll just, you'll be looking at the sky, and you'll see, they'll move into what we call the visible spectrum, where you start to see it. The luminosities are very low at times. Other times they can be extremely bright, and what we've discovered, over the period of 2 years that we've been doing the research, is that they actually have what we believe to be some kind of a signature management. We will see them in the visible spectrum, and they'll either fade out or suddenly disappear, and we'll see it being picked up by another camera system. Part of the hyperspectral cameras.
That's why I said I was jealous earlier, because obviously when these are fading out, you've got the tech that can still see these objects in another sort of spectrum.
Exactly. So, and this is the kind of stuff that we've been observing, since July of 2022.
Since COVID.
And you'll see that that they present in such a way where they're static. Other times there's a sudden movement. Incredible speeds at times that we record, and very much intimate presentation on our radar systems. We use marine-based radar out there, and we had to get FCC licensing for that. So the mobile lab has we have 2 different types of radar systems. One is a vertical scan that scans up into the atmosphere, 165-degree arc, and we can go up as high as 80,000 feet. And then, of course, the typical X-scan radar, which is horizontal, and it's 360 degrees of rotation using radome antennas. But the interesting thing about the radar is that even when these objects are presenting, and they're presenting near the shoreline, their presentations are very much intermittent.
And when you've using the radar, probably using every bit of tech that you've got out there.
Mm-hmm.
When you'd seen them, do you sometimes they're not even being detected on radar, or are they always on radar?
They're not always on radar, and you'll see during times of heavy activity, we'll see something that looks like fireflies. It's they're there one moment, and next they suddenly disappear, and when we'll see movement across the sky in a different quadrant on the system. It might be in the north side of the sky, or in the northeast, or down towards the west. But the movement is very, very sudden. and we'll see these migratory patterns that look like wedges, and we believe that there may be some kind of electromagnetic migration where these objects line up to the radar beam, and the central point, of course, is the antenna, the radome antenna.
So how about closer to home then, as in closer to the RV? Well, before we get to that, can you tell how far these objects are away with your equipment?
We've been able to do some triangulation, and if we do get a solid detection on the radar, they seem to present anywhere between 300 feet from our location on out to about 2 miles.
Right.
And still they'll loiter back and forth at times, and nothing that we can put any kind of a finger on and say exactly what they're trying to do, because it's kind of a mystery. Other times we'll see them where they almost seem like they present, they're almost like transmedium. They're moving from the ground up, and you can see them, either coming out of the ground or moving between mediums. And it's certainly in a very, very bizarre, presentation.
Do you think, John, Robin, do you think they're trying to communicate with you?
I believe so.
Absolutely.
We had an incident in August of 2022. This occurred around 12:30 in the morning.
Was this a Peekaboo one?
No. This is there was a triangular formation.
The Peekaboo one down here, so we can go to that in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my word.
And I've got the triangle one as well, so you're taking my questions now.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Paul.
No, it's all good.
I'll be quiet now.
No.
So so we had pulled up at our basically our work spot out there, and which is very much near the shoreline, and it's roughly about 200 meters from where the water is cresting on the beach. So we had pulled up, we had started setting up the equipment, and about 12:15, 12:20, we noticed on a central monitor inside the RV, the lab, that we had a scalene triangle presentation of these three objects, and they were rotating. They seemed to have rotation to them, and invisible to the human eye. I mean, there was no visible light coming from it. It was strictly infrared, and
right.
The cameras that we use are a Swire camera. This is a pan and tilt system, but it's using a Swire technology, and we were able to see these objects out there. So Gerald and I, picked up two of our night vision cameras, two different models. We had gone down to the beach, and we realized that these objects were basically presenting in wind gusts of 35 miles an hour, and very stable, no movement at all. And I decided to use my IR illuminator on my lunar optics night vision, and I basically painted the sky back and forth, and I noticed there was a reflection coming off these objects. So I knew it wasn't too far. It had to have been under 1,300 meters, because that's basically the range of the IR intensifier. So we're looking at this thing, and we noticed that every time we passed the IR beam across one of these objects, which would look like it was coming down in front of the triangle, and we believe it came from the upper atmosphere falling below the cloud layer, and we hit this object 7 times with this IR beam. On that 7th time, I noticed that the objects basically stopped rotating, and it was a rectangular reflection coming from it, and it was a perfect rectangle, and within a very short period of time, 3 seconds, the object got every time the IR emitter hit it, and it was a 1 second interval, we saw this rectangular beam of light get so much closer. after about 3 seconds and 3 strikes, there was just intense light all over the place, and basically bathing us in this light. And the camera optics were overloading at that
You're
point.
blown out. Is this? I'm jumping in front of myself here, but is this the one that dropped you to the ground?
Yes. Yep. And so it's we definitely got their attention by moving this IR emitter across their field of view. So as I turned to, I told my brother, I said, let's get away from the shore. And as I turned to move, my legs gave out, and I just collapsed on the sand. And
it was a little abrupt. It was like go, because these beams of lights were coming in, and then it all of a sudden came over them. He went down, then
right. So then my brother Gerry, reached down to try to pull me up, and then his legs gave out. He collapsed. And the interesting thing about it is that we just couldn't coordinate our legs. We couldn't coordinate the lower part of our bodies.
But you were thinking. Yeah, coherently. You were
exactly, yeah, and it was like trying to synchronize my brain with the lower extremities on my body, was trying to get them together, and I just couldn't do that. I couldn't achieve that, and it lasted roughly about 45 seconds, and but during that 45 seconds, you felt helpless.
Absolutely.
And whenever I looked in the lunar optics, I could see this large flashes of intense light, but it was all in the infrared. And Gerry recorded what looked like an orb of light, which we believe was a reflection off the water from something that was above us. And ultimately, his camera recorded in the last few frames, we saw something that looked like a large chevron pattern in front of us on the sand. And it was all IR light at that point.
Okay.
On the video, you can hear click, 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 click.
Yeah, almost as though the camera...
It was like snapping pictures of loud click.
Almost
clicking
as though
sounds.
The camera was being manipulated, and it's, we felt that it could have been some kind of a threat assessment. And... not quite sure, obviously, striking it with the IR emitter, got their attention, and they didn't want to see us going anywhere very quickly. It's.
Do you think that? Well, obviously, you guys were there. I wasn't, but so you believe that, do you think there's a possibility? Well, just the effects of that object being close to you, that it could have happened to anyone. Anyone who were in close proximity, or do you think that were directed to you and we want to incapacitate you two? You're not going anywhere.
I believe that that it was a direct response from what we were doing.
Yeah.
By hitting it with this infrared light, whether or not they felt there could have been some kind of a threat, a weapon of some sort, and that's what we believed. And
did you or Gerry feel any fear then, John?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It was startling. It was, like I said, we didn't know what to make of it. You just, even to this day, we can't wrap our heads around what exactly what happened. And there was a physical effect from it as well.
Physical manifestation.
No, it was a physiological effect. It was the next day, we believed that our lymph nodes were swollen. I felt it under my armpits, and Gerry felt it in his neck. And we were extreme fatigue it lasted a couple of days.
And they stayed all night that night. And when he came home, when they both came home, their eyes were very, very glassy.
Really?
It was almost like they weren't there for a while.
Right. I believe that it just created a lot of fatigue. I'm not quite sure whether or not there was something else involved, either microwave of some sort, microwave energy, or even high ionizing radiation.
So what do you think that you were incapacitated because they wanted to stop you gathering more information, getting actual visuals on these things? What do you think the reasons were?
I believe that they wanted to know what we were looking at, what kind of equipment we were using, and we shouldn't have been able to see them. If they know anything about, human beings and our sensation of light, that sort of thing, they know that, it would be within a certain frequency spectrum of this visible light. If they were, if they were trying to change their signature, their light, and in order for us not to be able to see their presence, I'm sure they were surprised at the fact that we were able to, see them through some of the instrumentation that we had.
Absolutely.
And, so I'm wondering whether or not, that was the reason, and they wanted to immobilize us and maybe examine the equipment, before.
All of this implies an incredible intelligence. If they can examine the equipment, I mean, we're looking at things in the physical, aren't we? John, Robin, Gerry, Les, Paul, we'd be looking at it and examining it and looking at the details. But this intelligence, it's not an examination; it's a knowing. It's to me, it implies that they can. I don't know how it works. I don't know how the process works, but they can enter these things, and there's a knowing. They probably potentially can change the settings of your cameras and anything. Just out of interest, have they changed anything within the cameras that you've been using?
Yes. There's the camera batteries. We normally charge them up, and we do this with every research outing that we do. We make sure the batteries are fully charged. There was 3 cameras that were affected. All 3 cameras, the batteries were drained quite a bit. They were drained heavily.
Even cell phones.
One camera, stopped after literally 10 minutes of operation. And we also noticed that the camera that I was using, Lunar Optics, there's macro settings, memory settings in there that were, the data was corrupted. Those macros, those settings were changed. And I actually had to go back in there and reinitialize them and set them up again. And I used to repair video electronics, before I did engineering, and I would normally see these kind of effects after an electrical storm, where you have these these bursts of energy in the atmosphere from a lightning discharge, and that would corrupt the memory settings in commercial or consumer electronics.
Right. Okay.
Sorry,
Robin, go on.
I'm sorry. I want to say there's so much to talk about, and just so not enough time with everything that, maybe one day we'll all meet and we can sit here and go to happy hour or whatever.
Don't be guided by my questions, though. If you want to move on to anything specific, I'll go wherever you guys want to go.
2 things: the footprint.
Yeah, but I just want to kind of paint the picture of what we had initially.
Excuse me, because I'm just filling in, and this is my first time, and I'm learning. So
listen, it's great to have you here, Robin. Honestly, absolutely.
The boss is nudging me.
You said. I think we've got a question here. If Les has arrived, there's bound to be a question.
Hey, Les,
actually, I mean, absolutely fascinating show so far, and thanks for coming on, John and Robin. I got a question because I was initially reading the initial parts of your book, and you went to great lengths to put pictures up of the lighting that airplanes carry, the landing lights, the navigation lights, and obviously the equipment that you've got. How does your equipment differentiate between, airplanes that you may or may not see with the naked eye? But how does it transfer to the equipment, the receiving equipment, John?
Right. So when we started out the research, the biggest thing that we were concerned about was isolating or identifying the prosaic stuff. The commercial air traffic, biomass. Birds, bats, whatever. We wanted to rule out those things, and we were looking at various different camera systems and the optics, the magnification levels on these cameras, and we wanted to be able to identify those something that an aircraft at a certain altitude and that sort of thing, and identify the lighting structure. So we basically spent at least 3 months down there, the first 3 months, just looking at air traffic. And we selected cameras that we can differentiate between air traffic and something that was,
Anomalous.
and not, more of an anomalous presentation. And, a lot of these, if these aircraft are in holding patterns and their arrival flights coming into the airport, you'll see these runway lights. They're coming on. They're these spots on it. These strobes. These very bright 600-watt strobes, and they could be in a holding pattern, and they could look quite anomalous if they're just sitting there doing nothing. But we wanted to be able to identify that, and
that's right. And because of where you live on Long Island,
yes,
there's an incredible amount of aircraft activity. You've got an airport probably not too far from yourself. What they call that airport?
JFK. Yeah, there's
actually the main one. Is another airfield on?
We have
there's LaGuardia, there's JFK
and Long
to the
Island
west of us. There's the Long Island MacArthur, which is right in the
just
backyard.
a quick glance on radar 24 now tells me how many aeroplanes are in the air. So going back to the results that you get on graphs and the scopes and everything. So can you, at a glance now, after knowing what a signature gives from an ordinary aircraft or whatever, could you tell at a glance on your reading scopes or what have you, and say this straight away? I know this is anomalous.
Yes. So we've explaining earlier that we use two different types of radar systems. They're fully independent systems. One's vertical scan, the other one's horizontal, and the reason why we use that two scan geometry is we want to identify, the profile of an aircraft, and the best way to do that is to have the beam reflect perpendicular. So we're looking at the fuselage. So you get a nice big return on the radar. And if we're focused, off towards the air traffic, the incoming flights, we can identify most aircraft, and because if the planes are coming in and they're moving towards you or away from you, what you end up seeing is a smaller area of the fuselage and wings, outstretched wings. Sometimes we don't get a good return. We don't get a solid return on that.
It's also the color of the lighting too.
Right. The other thing is identifying the lighting. We have spectra. We have spectrometers that we actually look at the lighting. And we have their broadband spectrometers, so we're looking at wavelengths from 194 nanometers on up to 1100 nanometers, which goes into the IR. So something is as low as the UVC and up as high as the IR. This is the invisible part of the spectrum that we can identify not only the lighting patterns, which, some aircraft lighting does give a little bit of UV, it does give a little bit of IR, but we can look at those signatures and identify that as an aircraft, that those particular lights have a certain wavelength and a certain signature, that we can examine. The other thing is using these hyper zoom cameras, night vision cameras. We have color night vision. We can see those objects, in the middle of the night. I mean, even with starlight or moonlight,
it looks like daylight with the IR.
Yeah,
cameras.
sometimes it does. It's using Starvis sensors, the Sony sensors. They're very, very, very sensitive. So you got this luminance capability where you can look at stuff that's a fraction of a lux, as far as its luminous factor, and there's enough available light, even starlight, that gives you enough of a backlighting to see and identify, around the wing lights themselves. You can see that fuselage. You can see those wings.
Thank you.
And another thing I picked up from the book as well, John, is that initially when you talked about it earlier about the hook, Paul talked about the hook in all of this for you guys, but one of those was these UAP sightings from credible witnesses such as police officers.
Yes.
Now, and that's, to me, that fascinates me, because obviously these people are of good standing and they're not there to tell any lies whatsoever. So that first story, or one of the stories of the three stories to do with the police, where they came from 3 different states and saw the same thing flying, and there was all three were chasing this UAP.
Right. So, we've been talking to law enforcement, and we're part of a group right now called the UAP Disclosure Fund. Yeah. And what we do is we there's emergency management people involved, and it's established that line of communication with law enforcement. But having those firsthand accounts by these police officers that they look at the night sky all the time. A lot of these guys are military people. they know what drones look like. They know what their commercial aircraft look like, and they're our first line of defense as far as identifying these objects. And in the case where we have these incursions that are going on, these waves or flap, whatever you want to call it, you have objects out there that are presenting in a very strange way. It's not your typical drones. We've seen some odd patterns.
I think we have some questions later on about that, John.
Sure.
Probably.
Well, that will be good.
Yeah.
Carry on, Les. If you've more questions, hit them.
Yeah. So basically, my simple mind here is saying to me, you have these on the ground witnesses, and then so they're corroborating each other's story. That's a story in itself, and then you come in and say, well, I've got the scientific data to probably back up these claims. So I'm not talking specifically about the police officers from years ago, but I mean, if you've got recent reports so you've got a time frame. So could it be possible where witnesses come to you, or people who want to dig more into this? Is it where they can access this data? Would you give them the data and say, Absolutely. This is how it all comes together?
Absolutely. We
want to be transparent with everything that we do, and you can take on from there why we want to be transparent.
Right. And we have a website that's it's called Nightcrawler. Eye on the Sky.
Eye on the Sky. No spaces. All underscore. Nightcrawler. eyeonthesky.org.
Yes, and on that website you'll see that we have we have database links, we have links to our papers, that sort of thing. And right now we're updating the database, the Google Drive that it has a link to. So you'll be able to just look at these videos.
And it's a 501(c)(3).
Yes, and some of these videos are they're truncated to just give you the objects themselves, because I know some people have complained that they tried to download the video and the videos themselves are just too large. So, we just there's one area that you can look in, and we're segregating it now where, the file size is under 5 meg, and you can be able to, download that and take a look at that video, and then as well as the full length videos.
Also, we are a non-for-profit organization.
501(c)(3).
What kind of relationship do you have then with, say, law enforcement and other government organizations? Pretty good?
We actually do know some of the local law enforcement.
We have to be careful with that,
folks, and there's we have been interfacing as well with the one of the federal agencies, sharing data and that sort of thing. But it's as far as some things that we can give them information, but
that they don't want shared, they don't want shared.
Sometimes it's not a two-way street. As far
I'm going to say, so it's all one-sided, isn't it? Let's face it.
It should be one hand washes the other. Really,
not for you guys, but it's one-sided as far as we're concerned. And we've got a great relationship with some people within the police force, as in the show a real interest, and then others, it's pretty cold and literally just, we don't want to know. There's just a wall again, but that's the way of things, we can't change any of that. Any more questions, Les?
Do you want to take a couple of questions from the chat?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah, you okay, John? Yeah, we'll go. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the screen, but I'll read it out. In any case, Chris James is asking a question for John. The radar signal that is being delayed could the objects be absorbing the signal and passing it back at a later time?
Yeah, so he's a step ahead of me on this. It's one of the papers that we just had published in a journal, a scientific journal. It's called the Open Science of the Open Journal of Applied Science, and it was on the question that he's asking now is on gravitational lensing, and we believe that these objects, possibly as a result of their propulsion systems, that there may be some kind of a gravitational field around them, and the lensing properties that this produces alters the how the radio waves return, the propagation delays, how they propagate, and even at times changing their wavelength. And we see this with light, where you get this red shift, blue shift in the lighting. But we've had some oddities with the radar over 2 years, and we've seen some significantly delayed returns, and they're called long delay echoes. It's been around. It's a phenomenon that's been around since the 1920s. But radio waves are basically traveling at close to the speed of light. We certainly wouldn't expect these signals to come back if it's 10 miles out. We don't expect it to come back a second later or 2 seconds later, and that's at times that's exactly what's happening.
Thanks for that, John. Yeah, I'll just move on. And Christopher Black, we might be a little bit over the place with some of these questions, John, but I'll put this one on. John, do you and Gerry ever summon UFOs while doing your research?
We actually have a couple of members that they practice CE5. We've actually had we've been indoctrinated a psychic to come out with us at times and try to communicate, see whether or not there is anything to this, basically, between psychics and UAPs, to summon them and try to get them, to present,
Have you seen results? Have you seen any results from that?
Can I interrupt on something? It may sound a little bit like odd to some people, but I think everybody has that in them. They just need to tap into it, and it's very difficult. You have to be extremely focused, and you have to be in that kind of realm to be able to summons them. And I believe that everyone can do it, but some people have it a little bit more than others.
And we've known people that supposedly can summon them, see them on a somewhat regular basis. There's one person that we're working with right now that is up in Vermont, and another one that lives locally that has these psychic abilities, and we do believe that there is some kind of connection there, but it's something that we want to explore further in the future.
All cards on the table. I think it's a great approach you guys have got.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely something I wouldn't ignore.
The Hitchhiker fact, I want to say,
well, perhaps that could be for a question.
Because be another day.
No, that's
that's like the woo factor, right? You don't want to go with that.
Well,
I would have asked it, but Les can go with another question if you like.
Stephen Collin has got a question, and it's just harking back to the start of the show. Question for John and Robin. It sounds like a classic MIB.
Yes. It certainly was. Certainly was with the guy with the fedora hat.
Yeah. That's good. Thanks for the question,
Thank
Stephen.
you, Stephen.
Yeah. Here we go with a question from Karen Beeman, and welcome to the show, Karen. Always good to see you on here. Hello, John and Robin. Have you had bizarre dreams after an encounter or doing investigations?
Robin has had some sensations where, she's actually felt that, she's been
pushed.
She's been pushed or
really
physically, contacted in some way.
So that's interesting, Robin. Sorry to cut across you there. So being pushed during sleep or being pushed during an active investigation?
In my waking hours, I was, I think, I wasn't going the evening that they were going out together. I had the puppies and I didn't, full camper, full RV, full of equipment and people. So I was staying home one night and I was talking to Gerry and it wasn't the first time it happened to me, but the lower half of my body, the left side of my body, my buttocks, was pushed right into the camper. And I kept getting that pushing for quite some time in only one of the bedrooms and that one time out in the camper. So I felt like something was pushing me. And then there's other things that I also felt. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, I believe...
it's like it feels like a dream, but I'm awake.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel something almost like caressing me.
Yeah, yes, that's I think
like
believe
long
that,
fingers caressing my leg.
I believe that's happened after a night of there was
the Hitchhiker effect?
No, it was a lot of activity. We had a lot of activity out there, and it was the same night that we had something called the Hitchhiker effect, or we believed it was a Hitchhiker effect because. Along with that heavy activity. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Intruders.
Okay. And please carry on, John. A bit enthralled. Go on.
Yeah. So we had brought the RV back to the house, and it's parked in a drive area in the next to our home. And we had turned in for the night, and this was roughly about 2:30 in the morning. And the RV, the laboratory has 4 cameras operating, and they're all night vision cameras. And the next day, I noticed that the cameras were tripped, and they had recorded 10 or 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes worth of video. So I played it back, and I realized that there was. The cameras had been tripped by some kind of an infrared light that was above the RV that tripped out the street lights, all 4 street lights at the same time. And watching it, 1 second and then a second later, you see all 4 street lights go out. The electric never went out, just the street lights. And is on these lamps, there are photo interrupters above them where they sense the sunrise in the morning, and they turn the lights off. But something was bright enough that we believe was in the infrared that shut these lamps off, and we could see a focal point of light on the back of the RV by one of the cameras, and we can see it in the camera. And this light grew. It turned out to be, it was blue, and then it went to white light. And it just spread out. It was extremely bright. And then, of course, the cameras, once they recorded that stream, they had shut down. But for something like that to happen, we kind of believe that, whether it was an orb or something else that had dropped from the atmosphere and was bright enough to trip out the street lights, but was literally over the RV.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, I don't want to ask questions while Everles has got some questions going, but I'm kind of interested. Would you have seen that light, do you think, or would it have been that fast that it happened and it were over within the not even the blink of an eye, just a couple of frames if you were filming it? Right.
So the thing that we believe it was infrared light, basically the way it presented with the cameras. Whether or not
all the cameras around the camper, the
right.
RV.
Yeah, well, there was actually 4 cameras that recorded this, and all 4 cameras,
they're all around the RV.
Yeah. So whether or not we would have been able to see it, at that point, I don't know. It's unless we had some kind of a night vision.
There's a reason I'm asking, John and Robin, is that, and Lynn is in chat, he'll know why I'm asking this. I think there were about 5 of us up on the cliff tops one night. A car arrived in the only car park that there is for miles around where we were parked. and we were on a car in there at that time, or the guys that had arrived, those cars, trip light, all illuminated. So we're looking at this car park, wondering if it's one of our team that's going to come down. And as he's going back through the footage, Linny, that he sees a little glitch, like a little spark as you're looking back through it, little flick of light.
Right.
When I put it into Resolve and started going through it frame by frame, I don't know how many frames it is, Les, because I sent you footage, didn't I? I'm not expecting you to put it up now, Les, because I know we've not got it prepared. But this, I slowed it down 50%, 25%, 10%. We're bathed in light.
Right.
So we're all bathed in light. And I don't mean like a camera flash. The land is light. Yet none of us saw it.
Right. Okay. So you were bathed in some kind of infrared.
Absolutely.
Infrared light. Yeah.
And none of us saw a thing.
Yeah. That's very much, what happened to us in August is that, without the night vision equipment, we wouldn't have seen this light, and we wouldn't have seen the object either. But the intensity of the light was quite bright, at least in the infrared by the perspective of the imager.
Well, I'm wondering, John, how many of these we're missing, because obviously
yes.
Ian picked this one up, and I think he's found it. So just one sec, Les, before we do it. And I found another one now. So he's going to play this now then. Well, that's the car park. So ignore those lights and see the flash.
Right. Okay.
Right. Keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Slow down 50%. One sec, it'll do it. We'll see the other one. That's what we were bathed in. I've not added light to any of that. We've got the raw footage. If anybody questions and says I've added light to it, there's nothing added to it. John, we never saw that.
Yeah. That's interesting, because we had actually recorded.
Thank you, Les.
At an area called Democrat Point, which is just to the west of us, down at Robert Moses, and we saw these flashes that were occurring in the atmosphere, and it wasn't lightning. The time was exactly 4 seconds. 4 seconds space. They were 4 second time intervals, and they would flash for. I believe it was 1.2 seconds, and then go out. And we recorded this. We recorded this on 2 cameras. But what's interesting, like I said, this would occur over and over and over again.
Right.
It was infrared light. It wasn't visible light.
Yeah.
But the way the flash pattern was just under your ability to perceive it, with your eyes. But again, this is something that was occurring over Democrat Point, and it was during a time when we saw these objects coming up. They seemed to come up from the ground and showing rotation. Only in the night vision, we can only see this in the night vision cameras. Excellent. But we noticed that secondary flash of light that seemed to accompany these objects.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, Les?
Yeah, I got one from our friend Zeno, and welcome to the show, Zeno. Those has some great questions to ask every week.
It certainly does.
Yeah, hi, John. With the psionic connection currently under discussion, how often have you found any of that have attempted to avoid being captured on equipment? Have any tried to evade you?
Yeah, I don't believe that we had anything that we could quantify as far as something that there was some kind of a psychic connection or that sort of thing. It's other than and that's I think it's mainly subjective. It's very I've personally felt some things that I'm not quite sure definitively whether or not I could say there was something something that was tied to what we saw or what we were recording at that time.
But I just have to let this out, and I just have to let the Peekaboo thing out. And down there that night when you were outside the camper alone, it was, there was this orb that there's a sign not to bring dogs down on the beach. And right, as he's setting up equipment and he's got his camera out, there's an orb that comes out one side of that sign that says no dogs on the beach.
Right,
and when John pointed the camera towards that, this thing almost, this orb was like almost toying with him.
Yeah, it was trying to avoid. It was
and went to the other side of the sign.
It was trying to. It seemed to be trying to avoid the camera.
Go back and forth.
I didn't realize this at first. It was after I think the second attempt of setting the camera up. I noticed in the viewfinder something a luminous object moving back and forth, and once I saw that, I focused my attention on it, and every time I moved the camera away from the sign, this object would basically peek out, and moving the camera back, it would move right back behind the sign again, and it did this a number of times.
I've seen that bit of footage, John. You haven't got any footage to hand that we could see.
Yes, I do.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm just,
Oh no, we have a lot of footage.
Yeah, let me just make sure that I can get it up there. We changed the drive, so I'm going to.
There's a couple of things.
I'm going to transfer it over. I'm going to transfer.
Well, just do it in the order you want to do it, John. And if it comes up, that's good.
Yeah. We don't want to waste any of your time.
No, you're not. Hey, you guys aren't wasting our time at all. We're just happy that you're sharing your time and your research and experiences with us. You're not wasting our time at all.
I've been interested in this, while he's looking for that. I've been interested in this because I've had quite a few experiences also with my older sister when I was very young.
Really? Well, okay then. While John's looking for that,
we can do that another time.
Okay, fair enough.
This one, this will leave for John.
Yeah.
If I want to just jump in next time, if I'm invited, then I'll let you know about it.
Okay, this might be a little bit out of order. Let me.
No worries. Well, you can walk us through what we're looking at, then, John, please.
All right. So this is an object that was it was more of a cylindroid that crossed the path of an airliner, and we were able to see this early morning hours, and it was at quite a distance too. The camera that we were using was a Nikon P1000, and it was it's 125 times zoom.
I know the camera. I have a 900, but
okay, yeah. So let's see if we can. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Let's see.
Okay,
I'm doing it properly.
All right, stop.
They demand a bit of attention, them little dogs, don't they?
Oh, yeah, too much.
They're spoiled rotten.
24/7, they want your attention.
Well, we had a problem with the little one last night, but she wasn't feeling well. So we were up all night. We're a little bit tired.
Yeah.
They want camera time.
Well, just while you're on with that, we'll talk briefly about Sunday, and I think you maybe got that then, have you?
Well, if you want to do a little advert for yourself,
a lot of the times, Paul.
Basically, on Sunday we will be talking about a few new cases. I've spoke to a guy today who's got an incredible adventure. Not adventure, incredible sighting, and something that's really stirred his mind up on Dartmoor. So we've moved well away from Eastern North Yorkshire. So I'm gonna share that one with you. This man who's been wild camping, who's seen something absolutely out of this world, just like all of this stuff.
And Dartmoor is coming back into the news of late as well, because probably that's not the first account of recent times.
No, and it's an incredible sighting. And one that's, I'm sure, that's going to change his mind about what's out there as a keen outdoorsman for the rest of his life. And so we're going to share that one. I'm off to Flixton tomorrow, of all places, to speak to I think at least two witnesses, separate witnesses, who've seen something really strange up in Flixton Woods which I'm looking forward to doing face to face, get these witnesses' accounts. And yeah, all good. And John, if you can't get the footage, we're still good. It's fine.
Yeah, I had it up and it looked like it staggered and shut down again. Let me just see, because I'm jumping over to the Google Drive right
Either
now.
that or the footprint.
Yeah, well, let me try.
Okay, no problem.
That's okay, we'll just run with some adverts. Paul, your Truth Proof channel. Tell people about your Truth Proof channel.
The Truth Proof channel, truthproof.uk. Anybody wants to buy the books, they're available paperback through truthproof.uk or on eBay. And you can also download the books via Kindle on Amazon. And if you want to look at the documentary that myself and Les Drake have made, Wolflands, that's available through truthproof.uk, or you can go to Amazon Prime and you can watch it on Amazon Prime. Don't mind plugging it. It's the best documentary that I think has ever been made on cryptids. I would say that one because I've done it myself, but I do believe it. And yeah, that's about where we're at. And we've got some footage coming up, I think, from John and Robin.
We're hoping.
We're hoping. And if we don't, we'll just carry on.
I'll see if I
We,
can find.
you know, as we're doing this, maybe John.
I don't know if you guys can you guys see that?
I can see it. I don't know if Leslie's going to transfer it to screen or what. How are we going to get that?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. It just popped off the bottom of my screen. I'll get it on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Just let me go.
Get rid of
things here.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're going to. I'll disappear just to make room for it, guys. And
okay. Right. Let's have a look. What we're looking at here.
Okay, so this is it was an early morning a cylindroid that crossed the path of an airliner. I don't know if you could see it. It looked like a
definitely, yeah. And
we caught this at a distance. This was looking towards the JFK airport. This object it seemed to wobble. It seemed to have it had a wobble motion to it as it translated in front of the airliner, and you'll see that I've actually run it in slow motion so you get a
yeah. Thank you.
And you'll see it coming up.
Around the tail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's crazy. It's almost like an incoming missile.
Oh yeah, and you can see it actually has a wobble.
Yeah.
Now there's one frame in particular throughout that video that there seems to be two lights coming on that object, and in the shape it's in the shape of a club, which is bizarre. And you'll see in just one frame and one frame only, you'll see these two luminous areas get bright and then flash off within a fraction of a second. And that's in the book. You'll see we actually took that frame out and we presented it in the book.
Let's speak about Jen's.
You can. I saw that flash then. It's almost oscillating. It's fabulous.
And let me see if I can pull up another one for you guys.
Just before you pull the other one up, what speed do you think that we're traveling compared to incoming aircraft?
The aircraft was we tracked the aircraft on the ADS-B, and the aircraft was doing I believe it was 92 knots, and the object was moving quite a bit faster.
Yeah, it looked a bit.
So I would say probably more like 350 knots or 360 knots. Certainly
it's fascinating to see something like that within the flight path of a commercial aircraft.
Right.
And then here in UK, they say they used to say that these things are of no defense significance, that are of no interest because they don't pose a threat. Well, surely potential, even if it wasn't a threat, but potential accident, we need to know. There's a need to know what these things are. Exactly,
and it's there was no navigation lights on it as far as we can determine. The object was it looked like it was had a sheen to it, but white, completely white.
Yeah.
and we saw no wing structures. There's nothing, no flight surfaces that clearly you can clearly define.
And was there a heat signature or no?
No, we weren't able to determine that.
Did you present that footage to any aviation authorities, any airport, and say, what do you think this is?
We actually spoke to a few people that were in the aviation sciences. We presented it to a couple of scientists that that were affiliated with New York Institute of Technology out here, and they really couldn't give us any kind of clear description as far as what they believed it might be, but they didn't think it was another aircraft.
No. Did you think sometimes then, John, that you guys, you and your brother and the rest of the team, you're frustrating for these people because you're presenting things that they haven't got an answer to, and science likes fact, science likes answers, and you're presenting and looking for things that they haven't got a clue about, and they want to have a clue. They want to give you an explanation.
Right. And it's funny that we get that from academia at times.
Yeah. Okay. So, do we have another one?
And let's see. Let me.
Do you have the one with the footprint?
Let me just see if I can. I'm trying to jump over there, but
there's no rush. It's okay.
Who knows about it? I believe.
I'm kind of fascinated by. You said a massive word earlier. You said they. You described these objects as they. Who are they?
John or myself?
No,
it was John that said it. He said they, and just like the others, or I call them the unknown others. Who do you think are they? Who do you think they are, John? Robin, what do you think they are?
I believe they're in NHI.
We both have different views.
Non-human intelligence.
Yep.
My view is it could be NHI. My view, I don't want to get into any kind of woo factor or anything crazy. But let's say that.
Can you guys? I'm sorry.
It's angels. Yeah. Let's say that I'm sorry. God. Who knows? We don't know.
We might touch that again, but let's see what this is.
There you go. All right. So this is an object that we observed from the Democrat Point, and the object itself would look like a rotating cube, and it was the cloud layers that night were at 2,000 feet.
There's a light above it.
Let me just
get your coffee.
Let's drag it back.
Because we know, I know what this does because I've seen it, but obviously I'm not spoiling your thunder here.
Right, and you'll see a kaleidoscope, a pattern around that light. It's not an aircraft. We had a radar scan on it that night. We don't believe the object was any more than a mile from our location, and like I said, we had cloud-based altitude that night of 2,000 feet. Now you'll see there was another object that was coming down from the cloud layer, and they seemed to they're so close. They were extremely close, but they look like they cohesed because the rotation. If you go frame by frame, you can see the rotation was synchronized. They were rotating independently, and the object was actually. You could see when it's magnified in a frame by frame analysis, you could see that that kaleidoscope of light was actually reflecting off the lower cloud layer. The light that was above the clouds and moving, down towards the bottom, you could see that was becoming much more focused. And then, of course, these two objects, we call it cohesion, where we believe the objects basically became one and just went up into the cloud layer.
Yeah, literally, they did seem to just evaporate as they joined, didn't they?
Yes.
And you can see this thing getting brighter that's above it.
Yes, you'll see it getting brighter. And it looked like a polyhedron. It looked like a rotating polyhedron.
I didn't mean to. About Lynn, but not by far, though.
Let's see.
Losing friends. No.
Go. Interesting.
Yep. All right. Let me see if I can. At the same time here, I'm trying to open up that second drive, and it's
all right.
It keeps taking me back over to the Google Drive.
Well, while you're doing that, then, when you're looking at these orbs, John, Robin, what's the most common color that you're seeing? Are they orange, white, yellow, red?
The orbs are generally we'll see them as red, orange. They'll be blue at times. But the two dominant colors that we see, they seem to be red and blue.
Okay.
And depending on whether or not that object is rotating towards you or moving towards you, you'll see it blue shift. And as it's rotating away or moving away, it'll red shift.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Once in a while, we'll see green.
Yeah, it does come up as green at times and white, or just white light.
And then orange comes up a lot.
This might not be a question you want to answer, but how do you separate the science from the woo? Because what we're looking at in a lot of instances with these things is way out of anything that we could consider as normal.
Well, what I want to say is that we don't want people like running scared of these objects, because I don't think that they mean any harm whatsoever. If they did, it would have happened already, I believe.
Okay.
I believe that they're playful, but they want to know who we are. And I think they need to have, this is just my feeling, my independent feeling. I believe that they want to get to know and try to introduce themselves to the world, because we're not going to get any disclosure from any kind of government affiliations or, anything like that. And that's really about all I can say.
Yeah.
It's just really going to come down to people accepting and believing or not believing.
Yeah.
And it's too bad if they don't believe, because I believe that they are here and they are real.
I'm totally on board with you, Robin. Yeah.
Let's see them.
Actually, I know they are.
Okay, so this one, let me just go back here. Okay, so this was an object that we saw over an area of Democrat Point, Rob Moses State Park. And the object was it looked like a starburst. It moved up from the ground and was literally about between 8 and 10 feet from the beach. Yes,
because I don't remember this.
And the object was rotating, and you could see the reflection of light on the beach just below it. And this was one of the encounters we had. It was 2:30 in the morning, and there seemed to be several of these objects sitting over that area. Now you'll see that to get a better perspective, I zoomed out, zoomed back in again, and you can see that
I can see the reflection on water.
Yep. Now what you're seeing here, this is an area at Democrat Point. There's a fence just before this object, and you'll see there's a starburst on the top that's rotating, and then underneath, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse.
No, it can't.
Okay. All right. You'll see a round starburst, and then you'll see a larger reflection of that light on the ground.
Yeah,
looks
just
like
below.
A cloud.
Yes, and this object is actually rotating, and you can see that glinting of the light on the ground. I'll let it play. Pull back. And let me go back again. You guys can see that. There were traffic cones set out there on the.
Oh yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And I zoom in, 60 times zoom.
Yeah, for some reason they wouldn't let us down there one night. They said there was a flood down there, but we made our way down there. There was no flood, and we saw some guys, like 3 guys with a shovel. They were on the beach. We're not sure what they were doing.
So tide conditions, then obviously you probably check them. So that, how far out to sea do you think that was? And it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, this object that you just saw.
Yeah.
This was actually, believe it or not, it was over the beach. It was out actually over the beach area. No, it was.
Yeah,
it was
I just went with reflection. I thought it were on water. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was over the beach, and I'm just see if I can pull this one up.
The leg and the footprint.
I know,
because they got the leg. I mean the footprint.
So do you? Obviously, these things, like you said, they can go out of the visible spectrum, in and out of the visible spectrum, just before you get to that next bit of footage. So if that's the case, are they trying to communicate with us? Because if they wanted to remain under the radar, so to speak, and I don't mean that literally, they just wouldn't become visible. So have we got it all wrong, I guess is what I'm saying. Are they trying to communicate with us and don't know how? I know it's all speculation and theory. We haven't got an answer to it, but what are your views?
We think so.
I believe at times that they don't want you to see them, so they have this signature management. Where they'll go in the infrared. Their presentations are not well defined. The luminosity levels, luminous levels are very low albedo.
But the question is, at times,
yes,
why don't they want us to see them?
But what I'm saying is that right now there seem to be much more of a presentation, especially with these drones that folks are seeing all the time, and these objects, these orbs seem to be accompanying these drones, right? There may be a reason for that. I believe at this time that they do want to present themselves in such a way that
absolutely
that you can see them.
And they don't want to scare anybody. I think that what they want to do is they want to come in slowly and get, the population.
So the drones then,
right?
Are we all in agreement that the drones are some other military tech that from another nation?
I'm just not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We don't know what that is.
Whether it's their military, it's a military response, or it's something else. But
they're awful big drones.
But it's almost like we're moving towards this catastrophic disclosure, and it's whether or not there's this is something that is there are folks motivated to do it, or there's something else, maybe NHI themselves that are presenting themselves.
Well, my feeling is it's people either want to believe in it or like go with our belief system and what we've come up with and the footage and all the rest of the the talking about it.
Well, you guys, Robin, you're not going with blind faith though, are you? You're actually.
No. I know. I've accepted it.
There's a guy who comes in chat. I don't know whether he's in tonight. Sam. I can't think of his surname, but Sam, and he lives up near Fylingdales, which is not an RAF base, a very important RAF base in UK. And he messaged us last week to say there's drones everywhere, but in with the drones, the spheres of orange light.
Yes.
So it's not unlike what you guys are talking about, is it, Sam Shelley? And it's not unlike what you guys are talking about, really, is it? But to an aspect of it that might not be considered or might not even be worth considering. But let's assume that it's some kind of new military tech, the drones, these huge drones, the big, that, like Robin said, they're awfully big. What if the phenomena that is the light form, the intelligence that is behind them, is curious and just wants to know what they are? Is that too much of a shot in the dark, do you think?
Well, it's funny. Early on, we had back in 2022, November of 2022, for 3 weeks, we were observing what seemed to be not just the orbs, but we saw these drone-like vehicles as well, these drone-like objects. And at that time, we honestly believed that they were surveilling these orbs, but the way the lights were presenting, the whether they were searchlights or some kind of spot beams from these drones that were they were looking forward, and these objects would either be just below the drones or right in front of them, and you could see these orbs basically reflecting the light back, and that was the only time you could see them.
And could you hear the drones, John?
No, not at all. Nothing. No sound at all. And that's what was was odd about it, you know. And like I said, it presented over a 3-week period and then suddenly ended.
Yeah.
And there seemed to be a time frame when these drones were out there. It's anywhere between like 6 o'clock in the evening and maybe 11, 12 o'clock at night, you know.
Or it can change too sometimes.
No, it was always the same.
Earlier these days.
So
yeah, but not when we were observing it back
like
then.
when the drones then, Robin, and
Yes.
were presenting, did you see aircraft, military aircraft as well?
Did I see military?
Well, you, John, anyone?
Yeah, no.
I can't say it's military aircraft. I have never seen craft that big. That's bigger than a 747.
Yeah, I think what Paul's asking.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Whether or not,
what I mean, we're right. Well, I'll throw net a little bit wider then. So when you guys are observing these anomalous lights, do you often see military aircraft coming in afterwards?
No, that's something
right.
we didn't see. It was just these drone-like vehicles.
Thank you.
And like I said,
depending on the color of the lights too. I mean, there's so many factors in it.
But they seem to accompany each other at that time, and I think that's what we're seeing now too.
Maybe
this had all started up in November. And I don't think it's stopped. I think we're still seeing that, these incursions over areas like, of course, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, and pretty much all over the world with this, basically what we've been hearing.
Do you want to play that other bit of footage,
yes.
John? Is that possible?
I want you to show the video of the
the
foot and the leg.
All right, can you guys? We have to switch that video over.
We don't want to hold you up either,
Robin. You're not holding us up. This is your stream tonight to present what you guys are researching, what you guys are doing. So it's not a problem. And I'm sure Les will come in with some questions shortly, and we want you to advertise anything that you've got where people can contact you as well. So with information, with where to buy the book, everything.
But I will tell you, from my heart, they are real and they are here, and they may be walking amongst us, which I'm sure they are.
Well, I think everything that right, there we go. Nightcrawler, Eye in the Sky. So this is the book.
Yep, that's the book from Amazon, and they said the book is set up like a monograph. You have the research within the book. Most of the book is dealing with the research, but the beginning is an introduction as far as how we got started and the objects, and the equipment itself.
Right.
I don't know if you guys see that the video at all?
No, because not at the moment, because we've got this picture up of the book.
Oh, okay.
But we may be
Excuse me
able
for
to.
one moment.
Are you lined up to do that now, John?
Yes.
Go on then.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Wait a minute.
This was in November of 2022, and this occurred. This was at 1:30 in the morning, and you see that there's a blue orb in there. The object is moving. It's actually moving from the right to left field of view in front of us.
Yep. It's over the ocean, isn't it?
Yes, and that's the Atlantic Ocean. And you'll see that we actually had. If you see the flashes of blue light there,
I do, yeah.
We had a UVC detector that's designed to detect UVC radiation, UVC wavelength, which is produced generally by a plasma or an electrical discharge of some sort. And that wavelength is from 185 to 200 nanometers. So that piece of equipment that you see flashing out there, it was detecting that radiation coming off that object.
Oh, I see. You're right.
And you can see that it's giving off blue visible light, but there's also whether or not there's a plasma state or some kind of electrical discharge around it. Which is
what were the conclusions after you?
We believe that it was either some kind of a plasma or there was some kind of electrical discharge around that orb, that blue orb. me play
We've
it
got
again.
similar bits of footage, I've got to admit. We seriously.
And here it is again. Now, if you look behind it to the right of the object,
Is that
you'll
a boy?
see there's another object that's actually sitting on top of the water.
Right.
It's rotating, and you see it suddenly either disappears or it's dropping below the surface, the ocean surface. And very distinct wavelengths. We see that blue, which I believe it might be going through a blue shift.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the detector being triggered by it.
It's fascinating. And okay. Do you want us to go to any questions, John? You want to do a few questions?
Sure.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Well, that was fascinating, that footage. Yeah, pretty clear, wasn't it, Paul, some of that?
Well, I'm just drawing comparisons, and I'm sure Linny was in chat, and I can see Dave Barker, who's not, he doesn't come up there with us, but Dave's seen some incredible stuff from the vantage point of where he lives. And we can see similarities to what you guys have filmed and what we're seeing out here. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll put a question up then, guys, unrelated to what we've just been talking about. But, Scotch Mist, are the men in black aliens or human clones or hypnotized humans? A complete stranger once sat beside me in a cafe and started telling me about myself, my star sign, my favorite composer. It was weird.
Right. Robin had mentioned that before, that they might be walking amongst us. It's
I know they are because I saw two of them, and I'm not going to get into that tonight.
Okay.
I'm not comfortable with it right now tonight.
Okay.
I could.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, Robin. At a later date, we'll have an answer to you about it. I'd love to, but I do. I'm kind of on board with this. Are they walking amongst us? Because I think they could be.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Paul. They are.
I'll bring this one up, but we've just talked about it. But I'll bring it up anyway because he asked the question. Bay Monster, what is your opinion on the current drone NHI craft floating around our skies? And you've just touched on that. And else you want to add to that, John or Robin?
Right. So this is
NHI, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard, with
We don't know.
With the response of the governments, especially the U.S. It's whether or not these drones is it a military a military response, military type drones, or is it something else? I can't say, but there is definitely they seem to accompany the orbs. And the orbs, I do believe, might be some kind of NHI. It's they're very elusive. The drones are much more prevalent. You can see them. There are times that they can also go dark and suddenly disappear. But the orbs, most of the time, they're very difficult to see.
And a lot of them, I think there's a lot of different species. As you would think, and
I wouldn't even speculate.
I mean, we're not going to speculate, but I think the fact that I think they're in, they're in the ocean in deep trenches, and I don't know,
Well,
you can finish that for me because I don't know.
We kind of, I mean, I'm sure that's the prevailing theory right now that. There's
but it could be both.
We kind of suspect that they may be coming from the deep water trenches within the ocean.
Well, why not? I mean, when you consider the amount of ocean that is undetected and uncharted, there's the chances of these things
only
residing.
5% of the ocean has been explored.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yep.
Go on then, let's.
Okay, let's have a look. Steve071 is asking, did you ever see any sightings during the Hudson Valley UFO flap during the 1980s?
Me personally, no, not during that time.
Sightings during the Hudson Valley.
Yeah. Yep.
Where would we see that?
Yeah, that Hudson Valley.
Well, no.
No. Yeah, right.
In my home, yes.
Yeah, but that
answer to that one, Steve-O, is no. Let's have a look. Stephen Collin, question for Robin and John. Do you think they are friendly or otherwise, in your opinion? I know you just touched on this as well.
Right. So, I mean, you know, I don't know if we really know, you know, whether or not they're friendly or not, or if there's multiple species. And, you know, I hear varying different theories out there that there's a friendly NHI and there's a not so friendly NHI.
Exactly.
You know,
but
I
also what
I wouldn't even, I don't know if I would really even speculate on that.
No, I mean, but you did encounter something that knocked you off your feet.
Yes. No permanent harm done.
No permanent harm.
that we know of. He may have a chip behind his ear. Who knows?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, you never know. I'm kidding.
I know.
Zeno is asking, did you or anyone experience any after effects, cryptid sightings, or feelings of being watched at random times whilst being on your own? With the fear it induced, it seems to have tagged you.
Yes, and I believe that it has. You know,
This guy right here.
I've had experiences of seeing shadows at night.
Both of us
And yeah, that is both of us.
in our hallway.
You know,
Just wrote that down. Actually, so please
Yeah.
fill us in on that.
And also there was one night that I was outside working on the RV, and it was late at night, and I was testing one of the cameras, and on one of the cameras I got for roughly about a second or two, I caught a shadow that had moved directly in front of me, and I couldn't understand where that shadow came from. You know, where the light source might have been that cast the shadow, but the shadow was very dark, and it moved just literally just in front of me for a fraction of a second.
Did it unnerve you? It must have done a little bit.
I didn't realize it until I actually looked at the video footage.
I see. Right.
It doesn't unnerve me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. When I see it, it doesn't unnerve me. I'm used to it. You know, from when I was a child. And every house I lived in, we had it. And the last house I lived in, it was, you know. Well, you can explain the last house that
I just want to see these questions, Roman.
Okay.
We're going to fire another one.
Okay. Tonya Morrison is asking, has being a couple, especially psychic, helped you find and experience more?
We, again, we were actually working with a couple of psychics right now that is part of the team, and it's one of our principal researchers. She works with CE5, and we have a psychic that has been coming out with us, and we've had some interesting effects from that. Some lighting discharges, lighting changes on our infrared cameras. Whether or not there's a correlation, with what she's trying to do, it's she goes out there, she's blindfolded, and she's basically sitting at a distance from us in front of the RVs, but we're able to see her on the night vision cameras. And during that night when she was out there, we saw these intense flashes of light, and in one case, it actually reset the camera.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I want to say one thing. I believe that everybody has an amount of, or some amount of, and they don't realize. They don't realize it. An amount of, what would you call it, John? Like an ESP or a or a connection or something that I believe that everybody can tap into it.
Yeah.
I believe that I can tap into it if I focus, and you put a blindfold on me, put me down on the beach, and I believe we're going to have something.
Yeah, along the lines of a remote,
but I would have to
viewing,
really focus. Yeah. It's like almost like a remote viewer, but you have to be very focused, and you have to have certain qualities.
Yeah, I believe that's what the Farsight Institute is doing at this point.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And
okay.
Well, let's
Zeno's got a question. Any nuclear plants or bases within your vicinity? These things are addicted to high neutrino outputs, like to hang around them. They seem to shift from the infrared to the UV instantly, but surfing radiation sites.
Right. So we're on we have a large facility here on the island. It's called Brookhaven National Laboratory, which is run under the Department of Energy, and it's a fairly large collider. They have what they call a RIC, and it's 5 miles. It's 5 miles circumference. This thing. It's one of the biggest colliders in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Collin, has Robin or John ever had any cryptid sightings that can tie in with any of your UAP sightings?
I don't know if this is something that I can really verify. I mean, the night we had that hitchhiker effect, we had just a strong feeling that
we're being watched.
Yeah, yep. You're being watched, and
we feel it
again. Seeing these shadows or feeling that these shadows are around us, and through a peripheral vision, we could see this.
So when you had the hitchhiker effect, then John, Robin, or when you perceived you'd had that, was this the feeling of being watched in your own home afterwards as well?
Absolutely,
it carried through.
Right.
Absolutely. And was it uncomfortable?
No,
the feeling. Did it make you feel uneasy?
It didn't feel uneasy at first. It did, but we're kind of used to it. My son lives upstate New York, 5 hours away. When he comes to visit, he says he doesn't like to walk through that hallway, and he didn't know anything about it. And he said the hair was standing up in the back of his neck and on his arms. He says, "What's going on with this hallway? I don't like it." Mm-hmm. So, but as far as we're concerned, we're used to it.
Okay, thank you. On the list.
Let's have a look. Getting through these. Have you both seen something at the same time but had different experiences?
That's a good question.
That's come from Steve 71.
No, I don't remember if we
the
did.
only one time I could think of was in the camper when I took a half an hour nap, and you called me down because of something, the bright light in the back of the camper. I don't know if that's anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think what Steve-O's relating to is if you've got a joint sighting of two or three people got a visual.
Well, we both saw it.
We're all describing it slightly different. It's giving us a different experience, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think the only experience that I've had is you have had like the toyful one. I've had like almost like somebody pushing me away. So I think that's the only difference between, whatever it is. I don't know, why that person is just toying with me, pushing with me. But the last push that I got, and I haven't gotten it in about a month, was a pretty hefty one.
And do you, the pushes, the physical, is that in your own home or does it on location?
That was in my driveway. Gerry was in the camper. I was talking to him.
Yeah, it was outside the home. Yeah.
And I felt like something pushed me from my left buttocks and pushed me right up against the camper, like a hard push, like almost like it was kind of like I'm not sure what it would be called.
Did you see? I can relate to this, and I've not felt this.
I just felt it. I didn't see any.
There's a guy who comes with us in the team, and he's had a big operation, so he's out of action at the moment. But he told me, and he doesn't go up there to film. He goes up there to experience. He goes like there to relate to what's happening. And he told me that something pushed him, literally pushed him in the shoulder. And I know Linny's wife's been pushed as well. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't know what this interaction means. I don't know whether it's all. It might not even be part of the light form, the orb phenomena. But it's interesting that there's a physical that's very close and around you. Does it? So when you've got the push. Does it affect any? We're talking about on site now. When you've got all your equipment going, guys, do you find any EMF meters going off, or do you find anything active within the electrical equipment?
Well, because we're not looking for it.
At that time, that was literally when we got home, and the
Okay.
equipment. Yeah, it wasn't during the
And
period of time we were doing the research.
It only happened in the guest bedroom, and constantly for months.
Yeah, home after.
And now for the past month and a half, I haven't felt any pushing at all. But then I started feeling like that graze on my leg. And that went away after a couple of weeks. And now it was dreams, and that's it now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go on then, Les.
Steve 71's got another question in. How many different kinds of craft have you seen, and do you think they are piloted by different people?
What we've observed out there was mainly orbs. We've seen something that looked like a tic tac. We have 2 observations with that, and quite frequently is the drone like vehicles too, which I'm not quite sure how they relate. The orbs, we're not sure whether or not there is something piloting it, or it's a remote operation of some sort. But we do believe that that might be NHI.
No. Okay. Did you know I had a website years ago, I think 2002, 2004, called ILF UFO, and it literally meant intelligent light forms. And do you think they could just be intelligent light?
Well, that's the other thing, considering too, whether or not there's some kind of a biological form of some sort. When we just don't know.
Yeah.
Can biological be that strong? That's the question. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Do we have more questions, Les?
I'm going to put this question up from Charmaine. Now, forgive me if you've already answered this. I just can't remember. But we talked about the
Yeah.
Have you experienced any?
I think that was childhood, weren't it?
Yeah. Okay. We'll add that one. Thank you for being right on that one. And just one for you, Paul. Actually, I'll just throw this one on the screen, but it is mainly just for you. Listening while watching the lights popping up over the sea at Hornsea again.
Yeah, so listening while watching the lights pop.
It's pretty active on the East Coast.
We're literally 12 miles away from where this guy's watching the lights over the sea as we do this show now. And that's interesting. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. See if you can get a bit of footage, even if it's on your mobile phone.
Easy, Lexi, come here, cookies.
Cookie knows we're live on air, John. That's the problem. Cookie knows we're live on air. Yeah.
They got to have your attention.
Have your attention, yeah. I'll put this one up then. Ian Linney. What appeared first, the orbs or the drones?
It was the orbs. Yeah, that we've been seeing on a regular basis. The drones earlier in 22, actually November, we saw them for about 3 weeks, and they suddenly ended. And we saw them briefly again in 2023, again in November, and now quite frequently, quite recently, in November in 2024.
Thank you.
Okay. And I've got to thank everybody at this stage for monetary donations to the channel. Always appreciated and very, very welcome. You guys know who you are. And I think Daz nailed is saying your interactions incorporate with other anomalies and have a beer on me. That's what he was saying. So your interactions incorporate with other anomalies, which they certainly do, don't they, Paul?
Absolutely. It really does. And I can see a question here that's not in capitals, but I'll fire this one at you guys. Have you ever seen any of the craft split into 2 or 3 at the same time? We'll call it, he's saying craft. I don't know what I would call them, but
we've seen orbs where they seem to be conjoined. There are times when they would separate, other times, and we've seen it separated 3 or more times. Other times we just see cohesion. They just seem to come together, and sometimes it actually changes the physical dimensions of the object, a single object, and other times they just get seem to have much more intense energy around them.
We seem to be talking about spheres of light a lot, but I think you've also filmed cubes, haven't you? You know, structured
Right.
or angular objects.
Yeah. When I say orbs, I'm saying that we've looked at these objects, and when they're giving off an intense luminous glow, they we call them orbs. They're orbs of light. But when the luminous level drops, when these objects drop in luminance emission, in the night vision cameras we can actually see something that looks like a polyhedron in the center.
Really?
And we believe it's all the same. All these objects are producing the same thing, and that's what gives it this glinting appearance, where there may be a reflective side to it or a luminous side to it.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's a rotating polyhedron with some kind of field around it, and so we classify that luminous energy as an orb. But we're seeing all of these objects that they seem to have some kind of a field and some kind of a polyhedron within the center of it.
Thank you.
You have to forgive us. We're both Capricorns, born on the same day, same year. So it's like we kind of interrupt each other because
no, it's fine. And unless Leslie's got a question, what about different types of weather and weather phenomena, or like sunbursts?
What's that myself?
Oh, well, Les, sorry.
Yeah, what about times of year? And that's what Paul is alluding to. Weather phenomena, weather patterns. Does these observations increase, John? Or do they come in clusters? Do they come in waves, flaps, or anything like that?
I don't think the weather has really had much of an impact on it. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen these objects even in the craziest weather conditions. Where we have heavy rains and storms. We've actually seen orbs out there as well. I don't believe that had any impact on them.
I was thinking more of like magnetic energy associated with sunspots, whether you'd followed that and thought there's been an increase in orb activity or anything,
Right. We haven't seen, again, that's something that we haven't really been able to differentiate, between whether or not there was a solar cycle, where we'd have a CME event, and whether or not we saw more orbs but we have recorded CME events, quite a few of them.
Have you got to a stage now then when you're going out there that you're not really bothered about the weather conditions because these things will present in all conditions? Right.
We try to get out there as much as we can, but at least for some of the observation with our hyperspectral cameras, we need a pretty good night that it's not a teeming rain that's coming down.
It's not
so
rain, or it's not
for people in chat who want to obtain a reasonable value camera to try and observe, because we know we can spend thousands and thousands of pounds.
Sure.
Is there anything you'd recommend?
There's a couple of cameras that are available. They're using the Sony Starvis sensor, and which is extremely light sensitive, and they're pretty deep in the IR. They produce they have an active bandwidth of up to 1200 nanometers. Which is really good for the infrared. It's above the near infrared and actually is in the low end of the shortwave infrared. There's several manufacturers that use these Starvis sensors, these Sony sensors. I know there's some companies that I recently ordered one from Temu, a company called Temu, and I've been able to get the camera for under $300.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another website too, I think, that you mentioned. No, I'm not sure.
That would it sounds quite good. I mean, I'm sure there'll be people chasing you for this information later, then because we get asked what cameras do we use, and
sure.
So yeah, that's fabulous.
Well,
any more questions, Les, before we wind this down, because we're about there?
Well, Roddy's just asking. I wonder if the government is using the drones to observe the orbs. Yeah.
It's what came first, chicken or egg here, isn't it?
Yeah,
we can go around. It's a revolving door. But thank you.
Yes.
And we, like I said, back in November, we kind of suspected that might be happening. That there was some kind of a militarized operation that is either surveying or surveilling these objects, either studying them or some kind of research. Maybe that's what they're talking about with the research now.
Could be
possibility.
This is why everybody, needs to collaborate, because everybody has a different experience. You put them all together,
Right.
Possibly we may be able to come up with something, because we are not going to get anything from anywhere else, from our government, or
Well, getting the word out with these
getting
podcasts
the
and
word
so forth
out,
is
Absolutely. You're
Yeah.
spot on.
Okay, sorry to cut across you all, but we are at the top of the show and we have to leave. You've been fantastic guests tonight, and I'm going to leave the last word on the screen with Karen, who put this message up. John and Robin, thank you for an amazing, engaging evening. God bless you both.
Thank you,
Thank
Ken.
you,
Oh,
Karen. Yeah,
thank you,
absolutely.
Karen, and God bless you also.
And Robin, thank you for giving us 2 hours of your time. John, absolutely brilliant
thank you.
talking to you.
Anytime,
Thank you.
Paul. You know
Thank-
where to reach me.
Excellent. Thank you. Les,
Brilliant.
thanks
You
a lot, mate.
also,
Yeah.
Les. Thank
So
you, and have a beautiful evening.
You too,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah,
Morning.
I know, guys.
Good night.
night.
Yeah. So thanks to our guests, thanks to Paul, thanks to our moderators tonight. And I know Lee Roscoe
Thank you,
is
Alison.
interested in the tech equipment because he loves his tech. So hope you enjoyed it, Lee. And on that note, we'll see you all on Sunday. Good night.
Good night.
Here's